I began my show yesterday pointing out that the very first two words uttered by Joseph Robinette Biden when he ran for president of the United States in 2019, the first two words were Charlottesville, Virginia, by design. Because Joe Biden has said repeatedly he made up his mind to run for office after the 2017 Tiki Torch White rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where one person got killed, and Donald Trump condemned the white nationalists, and then about the rest of the protesters said there were very fine people on both sides. Those opposed, those supporting, it got conflated. Donald Trump was saying there were very fine people on both sides of the white supremacy debate. What's so notable to me, interestingly, when Donald Trump said that, is that out of the gate, much of the media accurately captured what he said, but within 48 hours begun to spin it that he was actually saying there were very fine people on both sides of the racism debate. The racists were very fine people as well. They denounced him, and it has come ever since to be the belief, although that's not what he actually meant, but that Donald Trump said there were very fine people on both sides, fine people being the white nationalists. Well, Joe Biden, I said yesterday, needed to rise to the occasion, and without caveat, without both siding this, he needed to condemn what's going on college campuses around the country. MSNBC and Joy Reid, not an intellectually honest person, she's going overtime, as are others in these networks like MSNBC, trying to justify what happened on the college campuses. This is Joy Reid last night on her program.
While massive protests for a free Palestine have been unfolding on the campus of Columbia University, where tensions have exploded over the protests and allegations of anti-Semitism. The New York Police Department has built up a large presence around Columbia, and Columbia's president, Nemat Minouche Shafiq, has shifted the campus to remote learning following a weekend of demonstrations. More than 100 people were arrested over the last several days after the university asked police to break up a tent encampment students had set up on its south lawn.
Now, she's trying to claim that this is peaceful, and in fact, she had on Columbia protesters claiming that it was peaceful.
No, I was there yesterday, and it was very peaceful and very moving. One of the institutions affiliated with Columbia, of course, is Union Theological Seminary, and the Union students held a Sunday worship service and served communion there on the campus, even to those beyond the gates who couldn't get in. So this betrays the imagery of there being violent rhetoric spewed. I will say this, I do have a colleague whose daughter is a freshman at Barnard, and she has faced some harassment. But as Mariam said, these are outliers. And in the movement, we've always had
It happened at Black Lives Matter rally.
Yeah,
The outliers. If someone stood outside Joy Reid's home with a bullhorn and repeatedly uttered the N-word, do you think Joy Reid would find that peaceful? Joy Reid calls this peaceful. They're chanting death to the Jews from river to sea. They are funded by pro-Palestinian groups, including Students for Justice in Palestine. You know, these kids do not have the wherewithal, the means, or the opportunity to spontaneously show up in the middle of the night with brand new tents bought from REI. Isn't that funny? This sort of organic movement, they just all of a sudden have these brand new tents from REI. Where do you think they got them from? Students for Justice in Palestine is one of the groups that is responsible for these peaceful events, and they have an eliminationist position on Israel. This is their statement, quote, "Liberation is not an abstract concept. It is not a moment circumscribed to a revolutionary past, as it is often characterized. Rather, liberating colonized land is a real process that requires confrontation by any means necessary. In essence, decolonization is a call to action, a commitment to the restoration of indigenous sovereignty. It calls upon us to engage in meaningful actions that go beyond symbolism and rhetoric. Resistance comes in all forms: armed struggle, general strike, popular demonstration. All of it is legitimate, all of it necessary. But wait, there's more. There's another Palestinian organization as well involved, WOL, and it says that it wants the abolition of Zionism, which means the abolition of the Jewish state. Quote, "We defend the right of Palestinians as colonized people to resist the Zionist occupation by any means necessarily," and quote, "rejects all collaboration and dialogue with Zionist organizations as normalization. Columbia University's president is under fire from the right because a clip has surfaced from just after 9/11 where she said some people view terrorism as another form of popular resistance. Now, I'm not playing you the audio or bringing up her video because I saw the whole clip and she's actually being taken out of context. And I think as a matter of intellectual honesty, I need to point out, yes, she said that there are those who believe that terrorism is just a form of popular resistance, but she makes very clear this isn't her view. She's explaining the view of people in the Middle East, particularly in Palestinian territories, that they believe that terrorism is a form of resistance. And she's right in that. She doesn't believe it. She recognizes they believe it, which is probably why she's trying to crack down as she is on campus and not going far enough. She should go further because she knows this, if not resign herself, given the disgrace that's happened on her campus. But she's not defending terrorism as resistance. She's just noting some people do, and that's an accurate statement. What's baffling to me, however, is that confronted with all this, confronted with the organizations funding this, confronted with the claims that this is peaceful when it's not. I mean, they're literally saying Al-Qassam, kill more Jews. Al-Qassam is the terrorist wing of Hamas that orchestrated October 7th. So what happens at the White House? Joe Biden invites Alexandria Ocassio Cortez to come speak.
It is especially important that we remember the power of young people shaping this country today, of all days, as we once again witness the leadership of those peaceful student-led protests on campuses like Columbia, Yale, Berkeley, and many others.
Notice she emphasizes peaceful. She emphasizes peaceful. There's nothing peaceful about these with bullhorns, with human chains blocking Jews from campus, blocking professors from campus, blocking Jews from dormitories, harassing Jews. This is not a peaceful protest. These are the same people who, before the burned buildings in Waukesha, Wisconsin, could say it's a mostly peaceful protest. Remember, the left believes that words construct reality. So if they call it peaceful when it's violent, it's peaceful because the words construct reality, not what you see, not your senses. It's the words that construct reality. And you need to understand this. This is why, with a straight face, they say it's peaceful. They lie, but in their lying, they're trying to redefine peace. So Alexandria Ocassio Cortez calls these peaceful protesters, and we need to stand with the students. What does Joe Biden do when he comes up after she speaks?
Representative Ocassio Cortez in New York, I learned a long time ago, listen to that lady. Listen to that lady. We're going to talk more about another part of the world, too, real quickly.
Listen to that lady. She says they're peaceful protesters and we should support them. And Joe Biden says we should listen to that lady. He was explicitly asked shortly thereafter about condemning the anti-Semitism, and Joe Biden meets the moment and falls on his face. He has this very fine people on both sides moment.
And the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses.
I condemn the anti-Semitic protests. That's why I've set up a program to deal with that. I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians and how they're being.
Should the Columbia University president resign?
Right this way. I didn't know that. I'll have to find out more about it.
Very fine people on both sides. I condemn the anti-Semitism, and I condemn the people who don't know what's going on with the Palestinian people. I'm sorry, Mr. President. The Palestinian people are not the ones being harassed on college campuses. The Palestinian people do not have to have armed guards to show up on the campuses of Columbia and Harvard and Yale and Barnard, Stanford, Duke. The president could have forcefully condemned what's happening on these college campuses. He could have rebuked people like Alexandria Ocassio Cortez who are claiming these are peaceful protests. But he chose not to because Joe Biden needs the votes of the anti-Semites. Joe Biden wants the votes of the anti-Semites. For all of the talk on the left about Donald Trump and the racists, Joe Biden is relying on some very racist people to get him into office. Joe Biden is relying on violent people to get him into office. Their criticisms of Donald Trump are projection. Again, Donald Trump's superpowers, he makes people who don't like him behave in the ways they claim that he behaves. Donald Trump, they say, coddles racists. Here's Joe Biden coddling racists. Donald Trump's base is violent and anti-Semitic. Here's Joe Biden's base, violent and anti-Semitic. Joe Biden could have risen to the occasion. Joe Biden could have denounced Alexandria Ocassio Cortez calling these peaceful protests. Joe Biden could have rebutted all of it. And the Democrats, they're on TV. My buddy Paul Begall, I like Paul, but Paul's on TV saying, Joe Biden's met the moment. He's condemned. He hasn't really condemned. When you're both sides in it, I condemn anti-Semitism and I condemn Islamophobia as well. You're not really condemning what's happening on these college campuses. When you're saying these are peaceful protests and they're out there chanting death to the Jews, I challenge you to defend someone standing on a street corner with a bullhorn saying death to the N-word. I dare you to do that, to say that that's peaceful. I assure you that's not peaceful. And yet the Democrats will claim that violence is peace and peace is violence. They say words mean things and then just say their words. They're caught in the moment. They're caught in the gap of their own illogical beliefs of the progressive ideology. Progressivism doesn't make any sense. It is insane. They've decided that they must redefine language and words, and they've co-opted the President of the United States of America, who's always been on the wrong side of every issue for 50 years. Now he's on the wrong side of the anti-Semites. He's with them and not with Israel. He's with the Hamas supporters and not the Jews. At a time of growing anti-Semitism in the United States, you would think Joe Biden could give a speech against anti-Semitism, saying that calling for al-Qassam on college campuses to kill more Jews isn't peaceful, saying river to sea is actually a call for genocide. It's not peaceful, saying these, but he won't say it. He won't say it because he needs these people's votes. All of the criticisms the left levels against Donald Trump are more and more exposed as opportunism. They don't really believe it. They just level the accusation. If anything, Joe Biden is the Democrats' Donald Trump, and they will excuse and defend everything he does and hate the comparison. But if Donald Trump were in the face of something like this to condemn both sides, they'd attack him. If Donald Trump were explicit in condemning racism, they'd attack him. They have different rules for Donald Trump and Joe Biden. The media itself has different rules, and those rules are enabling Donald Trump to come back to power because they're so desperate to stop him, they refuse to hold Joe Biden accountable, and more of the public realizes they can't trust what the media says. The fact of the matter is the anti-Semitic protesters on these college campuses are violent in their rhetoric, in their calls for genocide and the destruction of the Jews, all while hiding behind claims that Israel itself is committing genocide when it is not. Joe Biden could have risen to the occasion. Instead, he got in the gutter with the anti-Semites whose votes he wants for re-election.